One second, guys. Had to get out of there. All right. Good morning and welcome to ESO Daily. I am your host, Mystic Raven. All right, guys. So I have a new PvE DPS build for Magicka Sorcerers. This build is called Charged. All right. There's been a lot of changes with upcoming Summerset. With Summerset released, with Summerset released, and this build I really like because it has damage as well as support, and I really like that about this build. This in Elder Scrolls, you are not limited to the possibilities of build configurations, and sometimes when you're building configurations, you need to think about your team as well as yourself. And with DPS takes on majority of like, you know, me. I want to deal more damage. I want to deal more. But sometimes when you help others, you are also helping yourself. And that's what this build offers. So with no further ado, let's get into it, shall we? All right. So this is a Destro build. Now, as you're going to see on my character sheet, my max Magicka is 43,041. Magicka recovery currently is 1,337. I don't have everything done. That's my disclaimer, but I will tell you how to raise that Magicka recovery. Your Magicka, when it's done, when the build is done, will drop down to 41. So heads up, you won't keep 43,000 max Magicka. By the time you're done, it'll be about 41,000. Okay, max health is at a 19,000. I like to have high health for survivability. Dead DPS is no DPS, right? So, not worth it. Max stamina, 10,600. You're going to see my spell crit as a lovely 58.3. Spell damage without any buffs is 2,079. To the left, you're going to go ahead and see Magicka at 58. Health into 6. We are using the Lover Mundus, and we're also using max health and Magicka food. Now, coming off to the other bar, you're going to see that max Magicka slightly went down to 42. Max health is at 19. Magicka recovery still stays the same. So does crit, but spell damage goes down. But I will be getting into that. All right, so let's get into the set, shall we? We're going to be using Mother Sorrow along with, Molakina and Elegant. Okay, let's go down and I'll explain the sets. Okay, so Inferno Staff of Mother Sorrow. Very, very important. This is transmuted Nirnhone with increase. Mother Sorrow is a great set. With Summerset, a lot of people are kind of making it too much of a thing. Keep in mind, you want to stay below that 60% crit. Don't go above 60, not below. Don't go over 60 is my recommendation. The reason being, when you put too much into your critical value, your base damage drops. Yes, you'll be critting more frequently, but unfortunately, your crit damage output also starts suffering. So between 55 to 60 is what we call the sweet spot, but the closer you get to 60, it's better. So that's where I always like to be. Because why? Because I want to deal a lot of damage. And when I crit, I want to deal excessively amount of more of damage. So this is what this set does. It gives you max Magicka, it gives you spell crit, it gives you spell crit, and more spell crit. Now, you get this in Deshawn. It's an overland set. You can farm them in delves, dolmens, you can get jewelry. Pieces are everywhere. So if you want to farm it without buying it, go to Deshawn. Literally, you can just keep doing content in Deshawn, and you will get these pieces. All right, because they're going for very uber expensive. I'm talking like staffs are going for like 300K. It's ridiculous. Anyways, Flame Staff, Nirnhone, increase, ideal. Lightning Staff, yes, please, for God's sakes, with much, you want a Lightning Staff, right? A lot of people are like, Inferno is the new meta. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay with a Lightning Staff. Very important, and I will be telling you why. This one has the shock damage enchantment, charge trait. Now, why charge? Very simple. I'm going to be using the blockade, right? When I use a charge, I have a better chance of applying the status effect to get the off balance. When I do that, my damage increases, not just for me, but also for my group. So I would rather lose a little bit of spell damage, right, to apply status effect. Because when I apply status effect, boom, damage goes up. anyways. So I'm going to use, as a DPS with this build, I'm going to use the charge trait. It's not always the healer or the tank's job to do support. DPS should be required to do some as well. So there you guys have it. Magicka. Okay, this is medium infused max Magicka. Why Magicka? This is a light / heavy attack build, right? And I'm using power overload. So Magicka gives me extra spell damage and weapon damage. Spell damage is the most important. But when I deal damage with 2 consecutive light attacks, I trigger overkill for 6 seconds. That increases my weapon and spell damage by 516, right? That's why I want the Nirnholm Inferno Staff. Nirnholm increases the weapon and spell damage by 15%. So when I trigger it, all of a sudden, boom, currently we're at 3,400 and something spell damage when it triggers. When I'm done with this build, it'll go over 4,000. So there you guys have it. That's why you want the Nirnholm, and that's why you want the Kina, especially when you're triggering an overkill. All right, so that's medium infused ideal. Robe of Mother Sorrow, infused max Magicka ideal. Magicka. Now this is my heavy. I want to keep a 5-1-1 config, 5 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium to maintain that undaunted passive of 6% towards my max stats. Now this is with the health enchantment and its divines. That is ideal. Elegant Sash, divine, max Magicka ideal. Now what does Elegance do and where do you get it? You get this in Auradon. It's an overland set once again. This gives me spell damage, it gives me max Magicka, it gives me max Magicka. Big importance here though. Increase your light and heavy attack damage by 20%. When I was on PTS, I had access to every set but Elegance. It was the only set that was excluded majority of the time on PTS. That's a huge hint, right? They increase light attack damage. I'm using power overload. So guess what I'm going to go ahead and do? I'm going to use the set. It's going to increase my damage further with light and heavy attacks. Really, really nice. Okay, Elegance Gloves, divine, max Magicka ideal. Breeches of Mother Sorrow, infused, max Magicka ideal. Shoes of Mother Sorrow, divine, max Magicka ideal. Now, Elegance Necklace. Now, here's where it's going to get tricky. This is where I don't have it done, and I'm going to tell you how to do this. You want to keep the necklace arcane with recovery, right? You're not going to use a Bloodthirsty on this build. Why? You don't need it with the power overload with this type of setup. So you want 1 arcane recovery. You want 2 infused. So this elegant ring that's currently arcane is going to go infused. That will bump up my spell damage by 236. That will increase my spell damage over 4,000 with the Nirnholm. Around 4,000. Should be around 4,000 with the infused. That's why you're going to lose 840 arcane or max Magicka. Then you want another infused with recovery. So notice our recovery is only at 1320. When you do this, you're going to get another 200 and something. You'll also use Empowering Ward. That will throw you up to around 1700 recovery. Very important. So that's why we want to go ahead and take advantage of that. Okay, so there's the sets. Let's get into the skills, shall we? Okay, primary bar, Degeneration. Now, why Degeneration? It actually deals kind of sucky damage. 9,424 magic damage over 14.4 seconds. But here's the deal. It heals me for 1811 health and an additional 1811 health every 6 seconds. Now, it's a 14 duration, meaning it only kicks in twice. But the kicker of it is, while active, my light and heavy attacks against enemies have a 15% chance to heal me for 115% of the damage caused. Plus, I'm getting also major sorcery. But that's not just the reason I have it slotted. Remember, this is a weave build, right? So when I go into the Mages Guild and I look at Might of the Guild, casting a Mage Guild ability grants me Empower. That increases the damage of my next light attack by 40% for 5 seconds. That's huge, and I'll show you how it works. But 40% towards my next light damage attack. So that's why I'm going to use it. Major sorcery, a form of healing, some damage, as well as a buffer, like a builder. So really, really like it. Okay, Crushing Shock. Okay, no surprise here. We're going to use Crushing Shock. Now, the damage actually isn't so great on this, but it's a good spammable. Now, I actually did try to use the Psijic Order elemental weapon, but here's the kicker. I need a Destro Staff to get the passive into Ancient Knowledge. So it wasn't worth it for me to take it when I was testing it, because that Ancient Knowledge, while I have a Flame Staff equipped, increases the damage of my single target abilities by 8%. That was increasing the damage of my power overload significantly. So it was worth it to have the Crushing Shock instead of the elemental weapon with this build. Okay, so just a heads up. We're going to use Endless Fury. Now, if you want to use Wrath, you can, but I like the Fury. Why? Because I'm using Kina. So when I proc up and I kill adds, this is pretty much, adds and finisher, I'm getting a recovery. So if any enemy is killed by this ability, I restore 4,417 magic damage. So if that applies to multiple targets, when all of a sudden I'm laying down AoEs, I hit the Endless Fury and it triggers with AoE damage, boom, I'm getting a lot more Magicka return. Okay? Bound Armaments. Yes. Believe it or not, I want this one versus the Magicka. Now, when I was testing it, I tried the Magicka by 8%. Unfortunately, it wasn't increasing my light attacks. It was increasing my damage of my abilities. But my light attacks were getting bumped up with the Bound Armaments. Why? It's a stamina ability, right? But I don't have to use stamina to cast it. It gives me an increased stamina of 5%, right? Well, it'll go up to 8 when it's done morphing. But here's the kicker. Light attack damage is increased by 11%. So remember, I'm using a lot of light attacks, right? I'm using the degen. I'm getting 40% there. Now all of a sudden I put that Bound Armaments on. Now I'm getting 51% extra light attack damage. So really, really nice. So the other one will scale your ability damage. But if you're looking towards your light attack damage scaling, Bound Armaments actually scales higher on light attacks than the other one. So heads up. Inner Light, no surprise. It's going to give us max Magicka and as well as Major Prophecy. Power Overload, the bread and butter of this build. When you get into about 30% on any target, not ads, but bosses, whatever, you want to bank up power overload to between 300 to 500. Why? Because you're going to trigger overkill. That's going to spike up your spell damage, right? So then all of a sudden you start going into like an execution phase with this ability. All of a sudden, blam, I'm hitting prior to any buff from a Spell Power Cure or Warhorn, I'm hitting like 46k towards execution phase. Add the Spell Power Cure, add the Warhorn, and we're around 60k hits per hit. It hits like a freight train. So if you're not used to a power overload ulti, don't use this build. But if you can manage with the power overload, now I did try Crushing Weapon with power overload. There's a glitch. It's like lagging up. It's getting tossed up. So you might want to think, oh, I'll use the elemental weapon. It's glitched up. It's like causing a weird delay. So it's not worth it. I was trying it. It did spike it up a little bit more, but unfortunately, yeah, it was glitching up so bad. So it's a bug. Must be. Back bar. Now remember, we're using charged, right? Liquid Lightning. Now this can apply vulnerability, right? So once again, charge, vulnerability. Boom. Right. Okay. So very important, duration 10 seconds. We're going to use the Blockade of Storms on this. Why? Just the extra duration. Very simple. We're going to also use Empowering Ward versus Hardening Ward. Why? It's going to apply minor intellect to you and nearby allies, increasing your magic recovery by 10%. That's why you want one infused jewelry with recovery. So all of a sudden, when I hit this, and I drink my potion, and I go in, now I'm at 1576. All of a sudden, you get that extra 200 or something, you're around 1700 in your recovery once you get it infused. You'll be fine. So really, really nice. Okay. And then, of course, we're going to be using No Surprise, Accelerate. You want to morph that to the one that's instant. Don't get the one that has the cast to it. All right, so there you have it. It's also going to give us Major Expedition, Minor Force. Really, really important. Inner Light on both bars. So with this build, I can afford to keep Inner Light on both bars. Really, really nice. If you want to use another ability, you can do that. But with this build, you really don't need to, because our Lightning Staff and our Flame Staff are part of our rotation. We're using the Lightning Staff for AoE damage. So all of a sudden, we play the Liquid Lightning, the blockade. We can use the endless fury for spammable torts, and we can use the heavy attack splash damage on the lightning staff for extra AoE damage. So we have 3 AoEs, and then we have a finisher that will replenish our Magicka. Really, really nice. Now, this is the big one. Summon, charge, Atronach. Now, I used to use the other Atronach, but with this build, I want to go with this. Why? It has AoE effect. So it gives single target, it has AoE effect, and the big one. This is what makes this build really nice. Up until around execution phase, this is the main ultimate I want to use. Why? Because when an ally activates this, they're going to get major berserk. That increases their damage by 25% for 8 seconds. That's a lot of damage towards your other DPS. So you want to go ahead and lay this down so they can go ahead, click it, get that major berserk. Next thing you know, they're going to town, you're dealing damage, you're helping them, they're helping you. Works hand in hand, right? Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so let's also get into the champion points here. Show you what I've done. The Apprentice, starting off, Elfborn 13.13. Elemental Expert 14%. Spell Erosion. Now keep in mind we're using the Lever Mundus. If you're going to be in a trial, you can use this build in a trial, but you will drop the lever for the Apprentice. With that being said, we needed a little extra penetration to get to the mark, so we put Spell Erosion at 1729. Coming over into the Atronach, very important to keep 75 points in to get the Butcher passive. Why? Once again, light and heavy attacks. That's what we're focused in on. That's going to give us an additional 5% towards execution phase. That's why you don't need Bloodthirsty. You have this passive. You have Power Overload. Really, really nice. Staff Expert, once again, light attacks, a lot of light and heavy attacks with this build. Why? Because we're using Elegance. So we want Staff Expert 20.26. Now, keep in mind that our Power Overload and our ability still scale direct damage, so we want Master at Arms at 1602. Coming over to the Ritual, we will be using dots, so Thaumaturge is at 19%. The Steed, we have Ironclad at 1602, Spell Shield 11, Hardy 10.15, Elemental Defender 10.15, Thick Skin 611, Light Armor Focus 35, Bastion 1208%, Quick Recovery 909%, and into the Tower, Warlord 10.22. I had 2 points left, so I put in a Sprinter. Tenacity 14%, Arcanus 14%, Healthy 6.17, Shadow Ward 11.35, and Tumbling 11.35, and that is how the champion points are allocated. So what I really like about this build here, and I'm just going to show you the proc damage. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, click in. Then when I go into the character sheet, we're at 35.6. Really, really nice. I really like it. So, and rotation's pretty simple, you know, for the most part. Like AoE is pretty simple. All you have to do is double click and then weave up on an AoE, and then all of a sudden when they get low, then you're going to go ahead and hit that. Like AoE rotation, simply on the back bar. You're just going to go ahead, get your buff in, get your builder in, proc up twice, and lay down. And then weave up on AoEs. Same thing with single target, except on the once you do that, you go to the back bar and you start your spam rotation. Spam rotation is just going to be your degen with crushing shock and weave in between accordingly. So really, really nice. Very easy. This is an easy rotation build. It's not designed to make things complicated. It's just designed to go ahead and make things efficient. Also, like keep in mind, man, when we're using that wall and with the charge, we're going to get that off balance right there. When you see the off balance, you want to weave up heavy. Why? Because you're going to get an extra towards your Magicka recovery. Since you're using Magicka, it's very, very important that you're going to take advantage of your own off balance to recuperate. That's why it works with the charge trait, right? So very, very important. Also, when I switch to the back bar, I have 3,308 spell damage. So really, really nice. And Kina can be a pain, but keep in mind when you're looking at somebody with applying magic steel and orbs or shards, you're going to recover a lot better, but you want to take advantage, like I said, of the off balance, and you're going to offer a ton of DPS as well as support to your party. Not just support to your party, but support to you as well. So that's really, really nice. So I really like this build. I hope players do too. Once again, I'm Mr. Raven. I'm the CSO Daily. This is the charge build, and thank you for watching, and have a nice day.